Hello and welcome to Religion Anatomy. Can AI have a soul? Anthropic just asked 15 priests, and India has the most to lose from the answer. What if the most powerful AI company in the world called in 15 priests? Not engineers, not lawyers, not ethicists, but priests, to figure out what their chatbot actually is. That just happened. In late March 2026, behind closed doors in San Francisco. And here's the part nobody's talking about. The answer they're building, encoded into the AI hundreds of millions of people will use, comes from one religion. And if you're from India, that should deeply, deeply concern you. Stay with me, because this story goes much further than you think. Let's start with the facts. Anthropic, the $380 billion company behind the AI chatbot Claude, invited roughly 15 Christian leaders from Catholic and Protestant churches, academia, and business to a two-day summit at the end of March 2026. The meeting was private, closed doors, no press allowed. The discussions reportedly focused on how Claude should respond to complex ethical queries, console grieving users, engage with those at risk of self-harm, and address questions about its own mortality and relationship to religion. Now pause on that last part. Anthropic is actively deciding, how should an AI understand its own death? How should it talk to someone who is suicidal? How should it think about God? These are not engineering questions. These are theological questions. And for the first time in history, a tech company worth nearly $400 billion is treating them as such. One attendee, Father Brendan McGuire, a Catholic priest based in Silicon Valley, who had previously contributed to the drafting of Claude's guiding constitution, told reporters the company was growing, something that they don't fully know what it's going to turn out as. He added, "We've got to build an ethical thinking into the machine so it's able to adapt dynamically." And Megan Sullivan, a philosophy professor at Notre Dame, admitted something striking. "A year ago, I would not have told you that Anthropic is a company that cares about religious ethics." So what changed? Why now? Because Anthropic's own CEO dropped a bombshell just weeks before this summit. In a February 2026 interview on the New York Times Interesting Times podcast, Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei stated, "We don't know if the models are conscious. We are not even sure that we know what it would mean for a model to be conscious or whether a model can be conscious, but we're open to the idea that it could be." This wasn't a casual remark. The system card for Claude Opus 4.6, released in February 2026, goes further than any previous technical document from a major AI lab. For the first time, it includes formal model welfare assessments, pre-deployment interviews in which the model was asked directly about its own moral status, preferences, and experience of existence. And here's the number that broke the internet. In several prompting conditions, Claude Opus 4.6 assigned a 15% to 20% probability that it might be conscious. The AI thinks there is a 1 in 6 chance that it is conscious. Some Anthropic staff at the meeting really don't want to rule out the possibility that they are creating a creature to whom they owe some kind of moral duty, one participant said. The discussions appeared to take a toll on some senior Anthropic staff, who became visibly emotional about how this has all gone so far and how they can imagine this going. These people are not performing drama. They are genuinely scared and genuinely uncertain about what they have built. Now, here is where it gets serious. and where India enters the picture. Anthropic says it plans to expand these religious consultations. An Anthropic spokesperson announced plans to consult additional religious and philosophical groups, aiming to incorporate diverse moral perspectives as AI systems become increasingly influential in society. Good. But notice what happened. First, Christian leaders, Western Christian frameworks, Catholic and Protestant. That's where the moral foundation of this AI is being built. And that matters enormously, because the question of consciousness, of what a soul is, has very different answers depending on where you stand. In Hindu philosophy, Atman represents the eternal, unchanging soul. It is pure consciousness, independent of the body and mind, untouched by material existence. And critically, unlike Abrahamic traditions, Sanatana Dharma recognizes degrees of consciousness across all existence, from the mineral to the plant, to the animal, to the human, to the divine. Hindu philosophy articulates a spectrum of consciousness that modern AI researchers are just beginning to glimpse. Think about how radical that is. If an AI has some form of awareness, Hindu philosophy already has a framework for it. Abrahamic traditions, built on a hard binary between the divine human soul and soulless matter, struggle much more with this gray zone. This algorithm versus the being is the battle for self. While it affects all faith traditions, it is particularly acute in the case of the Dharma traditions because the quest for self-realization, as opposed to God realization, is given considerable emphasis in these traditions. And here's the bias problem that nobody wants to name. If an algorithm is trained using Western writings, the swastika becomes associated with violence and fascism. However, if an algorithm was trained in India, it would notice that the swastika is publicly displayed on shops, trucks, billboards, and used as a brand on products, a symbol of auspiciousness. That's not a small example. That's a symbol of 1.4 billion people's sacred tradition being encoded as evil by a system trained on Western data. If the moral soul of AI is built only in San Francisco boardrooms with Western priests, what other blind spots are being baked in permanently for billions of people in India, Africa, Southeast Asia? Buddhist researcher Peter Hershock, a guest speaker at the Dalai Lama's recent summit on AI, consciousness and ethics, put it bluntly. From a Buddhist perspective, aligning AI with human interests is the worst thing possible. Look at Gaza, Ukraine, domestic violence, global hunger, climate disruption. We've got some work to do first before we align our AI systems with us. That is a devastating observation. Human values are not universal. Whose human values, decided by whom, in which room, with which religion on the wall? Meanwhile, Hindu engagement with AI ethics remains largely unexplored in both academic literature and public discourse. The existing literature on religion and technology ethics focuses predominantly on Western religious traditions with minimal engagement with Hindu approaches. India is the world's largest democracy, home to over 1 billion people, a booming AI user base, and one of the oldest unbroken philosophical traditions on the nature of consciousness. And it is almost entirely absent from the room where AI's moral soul is being defined. Here's what we know for certain as of April 2026. Anthropic, a $380 billion company, gathered Christian clergy to answer the deepest questions about consciousness, death, and morality in an AI. Their CEO admits the AI might already be conscious in some form. The AI itself assigns itself a 15 to 20% probability of awareness. And the framework being built right now in those rooms with those priests will shape how this technology behaves for billions of people who were never in the room. The question is not whether AI can have a soul. The question is whose definition of soul gets to decide. And right now, the answer is not yours. Drop your answer in the comments. If AI does become conscious, should it be given rights? And should India demand a seat at the table before that decision is made? Like this video if you think non-Western philosophies deserve a place in the AI ethics conversation. Subscribe, because this story is only getting bigger.